Hey there, and welcome to Haunting Lullabies. I'm here to help you unwind and drift into the night with some spine-tingling stories. But before you settle in too comfortably, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe only if you truly enjoy what we do here. Don't forget to drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. It's amazing to feel like we're all part of a global community. A quick heads up. There will be a few ads in the first 15 minutes, but don't worry, after that it's all completely ad-free. I promise you won't want to miss what's coming next because these stories are like no others. So, dim the lights, maybe light a candle for that cozy touch, and let's dive into tonight's haunting tale. The Echo Room. When she opened her eyes, the world was quiet. Too quiet. No beeping monitors, no rustling sheets, no voices. Only the faint hum of air circulating through invisible vents. For a long time, she lay there, unsure whether she was awake or still dreaming. Then, a voice, calm and professional, broke the silence. "Welcome back, Nora." A man in a white coat stood by her bed. His hair was perfectly combed, his expression warm but calculated. "You're safe now," he said. The procedure went well. Her throat ached when she tried to speak. "What procedure?" "Memory resequencing," he replied, as if the phrase should comfort her. "You suffered severe neurological trauma during the accident. We've been helping your brain rebuild lost pathways." "Accident?" He smiled gently. "Do you remember anything?" Nora tried. Flashes of movement, headlights, glass. A scream that might have been her own. Then nothing. Just darkness and this strange room. "No," she whispered. "That's normal. The mind protects itself." He stepped closer, adjusting the small black device clipped to her wrist. It emitted a soft tone, a low frequency that vibrated through her skin. "We call this the resonance monitor. It helps stabilize your recall patterns." She stared at the device. "And who are you?" "My name is Dr. Vale. I'm overseeing your treatment." He said it with such calm certainty that she almost believed him. But something in his eyes, that faint glint of possession, unsettled her. "Where am I?" she asked. "A rehabilitation facility outside the city. Secure, private, and very quiet." "How long have I been here?" 17 days. The number meant nothing to her. But the way he said it, precise, rehearsed, made it sound like a lie. Dr. Veo placed a small metal case on the bedside table. Inside were 2 white capsules. "These will help with neural alignment," he said. "Take them after your meal." "What happens if I don't?" His smile didn't waver. "Then the noise comes back." Before she could ask what that meant, he turned and left. The door sealed behind him with a hiss, leaving her, alone again with a hum of filtered air. Nora swung her legs off the bed. The floor was cold. The room was spotless white walls. A single chair, a mirrored panel on one side. There were no windows, no clocks, no signs of life. When she pressed her palm to the mirrored wall, warmth radiated faintly through it. Someone was watching. That night, she couldn't sleep. The air felt thick, heavy with silence. Then she heard it, a sound so faint she thought she imagined it. A voice, distant but unmistakable, seeping through the vents above her bed. "Help me." Nora froze. The voice was female, weak, desperate. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer, only a rhythmic static, like breathing through a broken speaker. She climbed onto the chair, pressing her ear to the vent. "Can you hear me?" A pause, then the voice again, trembling. "Don't trust him." The static cut off abruptly. replaced by the mechanical hum of the ventilation system. Nora climbed down, her heart pounding. Don't trust who? Dr. Vale? The next morning, he arrived exactly at 8. Good morning, Nora. Did you sleep? Yes, she lied. Good. We'll begin auditory recall therapy today. He led her down a corridor lined with numbered doors. Behind each one, faint noises drifted out, murmurs, echoes, music distorted by distance. She tried to glimpse inside one of the rooms, but Dr. Vale blocked her view. Each patient is on a unique frequency, he explained. Cross-contamination can cause instability. At the end of the hallway, a heavy door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a circular chamber, white walls, ceiling speakers. A reclining chair in the center with wires snaking from its sides. This is the echo room, Dr. Vale said. It helps us access deep memory through resonance. As he attached sensors to her temples, Nora noticed a faint hum beneath the surface. Noise, a pattern, almost like a heartbeat, but electronic. Relax, he said, softly. Let the sound guide you. The lights dimmed. A low tone filled the chamber, deep enough to vibrate her bones. Then came a series of faint whispers layered beneath the sound, words overlapping, impossible to separate. Her pulse quickened. What do you hear? Dr. Vale's voice came through a speaker. Voices, she said. They're saying something. Can you make out the words? She strained to listen. The whispers grew clearer. Some were pleading, others angry. And one, a woman's voice, spoke directly into her ear. You're next. Nora ripped off the headset, gasping. Turn it off. The lights brightened. Doctor. Vale watched her calmly from behind the glass partition. It's all right, he said. Auditory hallucinations are common during early sessions. Your mind is processing trauma. That wasn't a hallucination, she said, shaking. Someone spoke to me. Memory residue, he replied smoothly. Echoes of people you've known. She wanted to believe him. But when she looked into the mirrored glass, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Her reflection moved half a second too late. That night, she refused to take the pills. She hid them under her mattress and lay awake listening. The vents were silent now. No voices, no static. But as she drifted towards sleep, a faint tapping began behind the walls, steady, deliberate, like someone signaling in code. Tap, 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 pause, tap. She sat up, holding her breath. Then she heard it again, a pattern. She whispered into the darkness. If you can hear me, tap twice. 2 sharp taps answered. Her hands trembled. Someone was there. Someone alive. Who are you? She whispered. No reply. Only a faint scrape, as if fingers dragged slowly across metal. And then, from the vent above her, a whisper so soft it barely disturbed the air. They're recording your dreams. The whisper hung in the air like frost. They're recording of your dreams. Nora slid silently from the bed and pressed her fingertips to the vent until they ached. Who are you? She whispered. A long, thin breath leaked through the duct. We don't keep names here, the voice said. He takes them. He takes the parts that say who you are and replaces them with. The voice faltered, as if the word itself were dangerous. With echoes. What does that mean? You'll see it in the morning, the voice said, suddenly distant, as if turning away from the opening. When he asks you to listen. Listen to what? To yourself. Static swarmed the duct like 1,000 paper wings. The voice was gone. Nora stood there, feeling the hum of the air system vibrate her bones. A small light on the wrist monitor pulsed in time with her pulse, as if keeping count. She didn't sleep. She watched the door until gray seeped into the room, and when the handle clicked, she forced her face to look dull and heavy, the way sleepy their faces do. Dr. Vale entered with a tray protein mush, a sealed bottle of water, 2 white capsules, and a small dish that pretended to be medicine. "You're improving," he said brightly. "Your REM patterns last night were promising." She kept her eyes on the tray. "I had a nightmare." "Good," he said. She looked up. "Good? Trauma is a path," he said, folding the blanket at the foot of her bed with care that felt like an insult. "We walk it backward until we find where you stepped off." He set the tray down. "Eat, then we'll begin." When he left, she palmed the capsules, let them click against her teeth as if she'd swallowed, then tucked them into the crease where mattress met wall. The wrist device blinked again, a soft, patient metronome. And for a moment she imagined smashing it against the bed frame. But part of her wanted to know what, exactly, it was counting. The hallway outside the echo room felt colder today. Doors slept behind thin glass. Each had a black panel with green numbers that changed as Nora walked, as if reacting to her heartbeat. At room 3, the panel flickered and a single word scrolled across in tiny letters. "Calibrating." Nora slowed. Dr. Vale noticed and steered her gently forward. "Curious minds get better," he said, smiling. "But curiosity can make you absorb what isn't yours." "What's in there?" "Other lives," he said casually, as if talking about coat hooks. "Don't borrow." He strapped her into the chair. The speakers above hissed with a frequency too low to be sound. She felt it more than heard it, like standing beside a train you couldn't see. Sensors kissed her temples. The mirrored glass revealed nothing now, just a smear of white room and a woman whose face seemed a fraction out of phase with her own movement. "I'm going to play a series of recordings," Dr. Vale said. "Some from your own recall sessions, some from neutral sources. I want you to describe what feels familiar." "My sessions," she said, keeping her voice even. "From when?" "Last night," she swallowed. "I didn't speak last night. Your brain did." He dimmed the lights. The hum deepened. "Ready?" She wasn't. He pressed play. A soft breath. Then a woman's voice, calm, low, intimate, filled the room. "It started with the rain," the voice said. "I counted the beats on the windshield. 4 fast, 1 slow. 4 fast, 1 slow." The truck's lights came from nowhere. Nora's fingers curled against the chair. The voice was hers. It was unmistakably hers, but smoother, like someone had sanded the edges and warmed it a degree. Her own cadence, her own pauses perfect and wrong. "That's me," she said through her teeth. "Good," Dr. Vale said. "Recognition is healthy." The recording continued. "I remember his hand on the gear shift," her voice said. "Lower now, thick with feeling. I remember the bracelet. It had a charm, a little silver leaf. He bought it at the..." She stopped, as if remembering hurt. "The fair." Nora's throat went dry. She saw it for half a second, a bright stall at dusk. Twine-wrapped jars. A silver charm glinting under string lights. But the image felt inserted, like a picture tucked into a book by someone else. Her chest tightened. "I don't know this," she said. "I never had that bracelet." "Memory and denial often cohabitate," Dr. Vale murmured. The recording shifted to a softer sound, breathing, a murmur, and then a faint laugh. "Say it again," a male voice whispered. "I love you," Nora's recorded voice answered. The words dropped into her lap like stones. She thrashed against the restraints. "Turn it off. We're almost there." he said. 2 more. The speakers clicked. A girl sang, slightly off-key, the way children do when they're not self-conscious. The melody was a simple, looping thing. Nora felt something stab behind her ribs, an ache so sharp she forgot to breathe. She didn't know this song. She didn't know this child. But her body did. Her body leaned forward, hungry. "Who is she?" she whispered. "Sound triggers shape memory," Dr. Vale said. "Sometimes we remember feeling before facts." "She's mine," Nora said before she could stop herself. Silence, thick as cloth. Behind the glass, he didn't move. Then the last recording began. A single sentence, spoken in her voice, steady, consenting, a signature written in sound. "I'm ready to become her." The room tilted. She dug her nails into the padding and tasted iron. The words were so calm, so sure. She had never said them. She knew she had never said them. But there they were, her vowels, her breaths, the way her tongue hit the roof of her mouth. "Perfect. Where did you get that?" she said, every syllable scraping her throat. "From you," he said softly. "No." He watched her for a long moment, then tapped a key. The resonance hum faded. The lights warmed. "We don't need to fight the process, Nora. Integration is smoother when you trust." "Trust what?" "That the noise will stop." He unbuckled the restraints with practiced gentleness. The way a pilot touches switches he's touched 1,000 times. "Eat, rest. We'll continue at 1600. He left with the recordings. The mirrored glass caught Nora's face and offered it back a fraction too late. She counted breaths until the door sealed. Then she counted the steps to the nearest air grate. 12. The screws were set deep, not finger loose like a movie. But the panel flexed when she pressed. Just enough to prove it wasn't purely decorative. She needed something to pry it. Something the room didn't have, nothing metal except the brace on the chair and the door's invisible spine. Her wrist unit blinked again. She cupped it in her palm, feeling its faint buzz, and slipped a fingernail under the rubber edge. It peeled with a soft tack. Inside, no complex circuit board, no obvious wire bundle. Just a tiny capsule embedded in gel. She nudged it. It came loose and rolled into her hand, warm with her skin's heat. Something quivered through the device as it left its cradle. The pulsing light on the wristband stuttered, then went steady. Monitoring lost, she thought. Or, I just turned off the metronome. She tucked the capsule under her tongue, tasting bitter metal, then spat it into her hand and slid it deep into the seam of the mattress where foam meets frame. Her heart drummed. She waited for alarms, footsteps, the door's hiss. Nothing. Tap, tap. She froze. The sound came from the wall behind the headboard. 2 taps. Pause. 2 taps. A language without words. She tapped back with her knuckle, expecting pain. The wall was thinner than it looked. Tap, tap. A reply, 1, 2, 3 taps, then a scrape, then the softest thud. "I'm here," she whispered to plaster. The voice from last night sifted through again. Drier, more ragged. "Don't let him balance you." "What?" "He'll say you're too loud. He'll say you need quiet. He'll offer quiet like a gift. Don't take it." Nora pressed her lips to the wall. "What happens if I do?" "You'll stop asking questions," the voice said. "And then you'll stop having them." "How long have you been here?" A shake of breath that might have been a laugh. "I was Maya. Or I am Maya. Or maybe that's hers. They made me say another name for a while. Lena. I can still feel it on my tongue. It doesn't fit. So this echo room, it isn't about restoring memory. It's about tuning, Maya said. He matches you to a target until you hum like her. Nora's mouth went dry. Whose target am I? Silence. Then, as if sliding a secret under a door, Maya exhaled a name. Evelyn. The name did nothing inside Nora. No spark, no ache. But something in the room reacted. A faint change in the air, as if the vents inhaled. How do I get out? Nora whispered. During meals, the locks sync to the central line, Maya said. There's a heartbeat in the system. Listen for the longer pause between cycles. That's your window. When? Soon, Maya said. He's accelerating you. The faster he tunes you, the sloppier he gets. Footsteps. Distant, then closer, then stopping outside Nora's door. She scrambled to the bed, yanked the blanket up, let her eyelids sag. The handle clicked. The seal sighed open. A woman stepped in, late 30s, hair pinned back, eyes that looked too tired to lie well. She carried a tray, not mush this time. Slices of something glazed, green beans, a square of cake the color of lemon. The smell hit Nora's empty stomach like a plea. I'm Nurse Hadley, the woman said quietly, eyes flicking to the mirrored glass. Eat a few bites. You need strength for therapy. Nora stared. Are you real? Hadley's mouth twitched. I get that a lot. Please, Nora said, voice low. Help me. I know what he is, Hadley said, just as soft. She slid the tray onto the table and, while placing the fork, used her other hand to set something small beside the plate. A coil of steel no bigger than a coin. A screwdriver bit. Accidents happen, Hadley whispered louder for the glass. And patients see conspiracies when they're frightened. That's normal. She stepped back, hands visible. I'll be outside if you need anything. The door hissed shut. The room listened to her. The mirrored glass waited. Nora left the tray untouched. She knelt at the vent, breath shallow, and pressed the screwdriver bit into the first screw. It turned a quarter, then a half. Metal squealed softly, the sound swallowed by the ever-present hum. She worked until her wrists shook and her thumbs throbbed. One screw came loose into her palm. She set it carefully on the floor and moved to the second. Tap, tap. Maya's code, now faster. Nora tapped back, frantic, then froze, listening to the hallway. Wheels whispered over tile. A cart. A low conversation. A laugh that didn't belong here. The second screw dropped free. The panels sagged. Cold air pressed her face. She peered into the dark, narrow, dust glittering like faint stars. To the left, a grid. To the right, a black square where the duct widened. She could fit. Maybe. If she exhaled everything she had and left some skin behind. The wristband pulsed once. The light died. A soft tone, just a thread of sound, slid into the room. Not from the vent. From the ceiling. From the speakers that always listened. Nora, Dr. Vale's voice said. Calm as a Sunday sermon. The kind of voice that makes you open doors. Would you join me? We're ready for phase 2. She looked from the vent to the door and back to the vent. Her heart threw itself against her ribs with a will of its own. The screwdriver bit was sticky in her fingertips. Don't let him balance you, Maya had said. Nora set her mouth, slid the vent panel aside, and shoved her shoulders into the dark. Dust filled her throat. Metal bit her collarbone. Behind her, the door handle clicked. She exhaled every breath she had left and pulled herself into the echoing throat of the building, just as the door whispered open and Dr. Vale said her name like a promise. The duct narrowed after the first turn, forcing Nora to pull herself forward with her fingertips. Every scrape of her shoes against the metal sounded impossibly loud. She froze at every echo, waiting for alarms that never came. Air gusted through the tunnel in steady bursts, warm, then cool, each change of temperature marking another vent chamber. After 20 feet, the shaft widened slightly, enough for her to crouch. Light spilled through a grid beneath her knees, a laboratory, sterile and silver. 2 technicians in white, uniforms moved between glass pods that pulsed with a faint amber glow. Inside each pod floated something human-shaped, connected to cables that fed from the ceiling. One of the technicians adjusted a dial. A low note filled the air, a vibration Nora felt through the soles of her feet. One of the shapes twitched. The technician nodded approvingly. Resonance increasing, subject 12 approaching optimal frequency. Nora clamped her hand over her mouth. The voice was unmistakable hers, or almost hers. The rhythm of the words, the slight tremor on certain vowels. They were tuning another her. Keep her at 70 hertz, the second technician said. Dr. Vale wants synchronization before phase 2 begins. She backed away from the vent, shaking so hard the metal rattled. The sound echoed down the duct, and both technicians looked up. "Did you hear that?" one asked. "Probably the vents," the other said. "The system's been unstable since the blackout." They returned to their work. Nora crawled backward until the lab vanished from sight. The duct turned again and split into 2 paths, left leading down, right rising toward a faint blue glow. She followed the light. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a grate that overlooked a corridor she hadn't seen before. This one wasn't white. It was painted a dull gray, lined with heavy doors labeled by hand. Not machine, Archive A, Archive B, patient files. The corridor was empty. She pressed the screwdriver bit against the screws and worked them loose, one by one. When the grate fell away, she caught it before it hit the ground. She dropped silently onto the tiles. The air smelled of old paper and disinfectant. Somewhere distant, a machine clicked rhythmically, like a heartbeat slowed to a metronome. She tried the first door. Locked. The second yielded after a push, the latch half broken. Inside, shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with files. Thick, labeled by number and date. She scanned the nearest stack until her eyes caught one marked N7. Nora K. Halperin, subject initiated for over 12. Her breath hitched. She slid the file free. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, showing her lying in the echo room, sensors on her temples. Beside each photo was a transcript. Session 1. Subject displays high-pitch sensitivity. Emotional resonance aligns with target E. Memory override initiated. Session 3. Subject retains residual maternal memory fragments. Suppression required. Session 6. Vocal reconstruction achieved. Subject's speech pattern now 98% match with target E. Beneath the last page was a photograph of another woman, a face similar but not identical. Older, softer around the eyes. Written under it, Evelyn Care, deceased 2 nights. So Maya had been right. Evelyn wasn't a patient. She was the pattern. Nora stuffed the file into her gown. A shadow passed under the door. She ducked behind a shelf. The handle turned slowly. A sliver of hallway light cut across the floor. "Dr. Vale says check the archives," a man's voice murmured. "He thinks she might have gone this way." Footsteps entered, 2 pairs. Flashlights swept over the shelves. Nora pressed herself against the wall, her pulse roaring in her ears. A beam passed inches above her head. Nothing, the second man said. She's close, the first answered. He said she always moves toward the sound. They left. The door clicked shut. Nora exhaled shakily and looked toward the far end of the room. There, behind a half-open cabinet, was a small maintenance hatch labeled Conduit Access. She crawled through, clutching the stolen file. The tunnel slanted upward. Voices bled through the pipes. Doctor, Vale's among them. She slowed, listening. Integration parameters holding steady. Once Subject 7 synchronizes, we can terminate the duplicates. The noise is getting disruptive. A woman's voice replied Hadley. Sir, some of them still respond. They're not noise. They're people. People are unstable, Vale said calmly. Echoes are perfect. A door closed. Footsteps faded. Nora reached the end of the conduit and pushed against the loose grate. It opened into a small observation gallery overlooking the echo room itself. From above, she could see the chair she'd escaped, the cables, the speakers. Dr. Vale stood beside a console, his back to her. Nurse Hadley faced him, arms crossed. She deserves to know the truth, Hadley said. The truth would destroy the resonance, Vale replied. And then we'd lose Evelyn again. He turned slightly, and Nora saw the photograph. He held Evelyn with a man and a child in front of a lake. The same man now, older, gaunter, Vale himself. You can't bring her back, Hadley said. I already have, Vale whispered. She just hasn't accepted it yet. Hadley looked toward the observation glass. For a moment their eyes met. Nora's breath stopped. Then Hadley's gaze flicked to the far door, a silent instruction before she turned back to Vale. At least let me check the systems, she said. You don't want a resonance collapse mid-session. 10 minutes, he said. Then we start phase 2. Hadley left through the side corridor. Vale stayed by the console, typing commands. Lines of data scrolled across the monitors. Frequency graphs pulsing like heartbeats. Nora scanned the gallery. On the opposite wall, a control panel glowed faint green. Emergency ventilation override. If she could cut the air system, maybe she could force the facility to open manual exits. She crossed the gallery, careful not to let her shadow show on the glass, and pried off the panel cover with the screwdriver bit. Wires braided like veins inside red, black, yellow. She hesitated only a moment before pulling the red one. A low alarm began to pulse, soft but insistent. Vale spun toward the console. What the? He stabbed at the keyboard. System breach. Sector 4 offline. Nora ducked under the panel, heart hammering. He grabbed the intercom. Hadley, report. Where are you? Static. No response. Security to control, Vale snapped. Seal all ventilation channels. She's in the ducts. The light shifted from white to red. The hum of air vents slowed to silence. The room below shimmered with heat. Nora crawled back to the grate, desperate for another route. But through the glass, she saw something that froze her blood. One of the glass pods from the lab now stood in the echo room, wheeled in by 2 technicians. Inside floated a human figure, wires trailing from its scalp. The face was half-formed, skin pale and translucent. But the mouth was hers. Dr. Vale touched the glass reverently. Almost perfect, he murmured. The voice will complete it. He turned toward the console. Initiate capture on Subject 7's residual frequency. A piercing tone filled the lever. Speakers. So high it burned. Nora clamped her hands over her ears. But the sound wasn't outside, it was inside her skull, vibrating against her teeth. The wristband she'd thought dead flared to life, pulsing violently. "Begin synchronization," Vale ordered. The world tilted. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her thoughts began to split, one part still crawling in the gallery, the other standing below, eyes closed, speaking words she couldn't control. Her own voice drifted up from the chamber. "I'm ready to come home." "No," she gasped. "That's not me." But the echo in the room kept repeating, louder each time. "I'm ready to come home." Vale smiled. "There you are, Evelyn." The lights around the pod intensified, and the figure inside began to twitch as the words filled the air. Nora slammed her hand against the glass. "Stop it!" Vale looked up sharply. For the first time, he saw her. "Ah," he said softly. The noise found its way home. He reached for a lever on the console. Nora turned and ran. Sirens bled into the walls, a low, pulsing wail that made the corridors feel narrower. Nora sprinted along the observation gallery, shoulder-scraping paint, the stolen file slapping her ribs with every step. The red emergency lights strobed, turning the floor to slices of blood and shadow. She hit a junction, chose left, and nearly collided with a locked door. The panel beside it flickered. System hold seal engaged. "Come on," she hissed, jamming the screwdriver bit into the seam to pry at the casing. The metal flexed, then snapped back. Behind her, footsteps hit the far stairs, measured and unhurried, as if the person knew there was nowhere to go. She pressed her ear to the panel and listened. Beneath the alarms, beneath the hum of dying vents, something thumped steady and slow. The system heartbeat Maya had described. Da, dum, da, dum, da, long pause, dum. Nora timed her breath to it. On the next long pause, she slammed her palm against the release. The light flicked from red to green for a single blink, and the lock thunked. She wrenched the door open and slipped through just as it resealed, leaving the footsteps on the other side. The new corridor was narrower, industrial, lined with exposed pipes that sweated condensation. The air here was cooler, less human. She ran until the alarms softened with distance, and the only sound was the clatter of her breath. At a bend, a hand shot from a utility recess and clamped around her wrist. Nora twisted, bringing the screwdriver bit up to strike, and found herself nose to nose with Nurse Hadley. "Shh," Hadley breathed, pulling her into the shadow of the recess. She peered past Nora down the corridor, listening, then relaxed a fraction. "He saw you in the gallery. Security is fanning out. We have minutes. Why are you helping me?" Nora whispered. Hadley's mouth made a line. "Because when the tuning fails, he calls it mercy." She let that hang there. "You shut down Sector 4? Nora nodded. "Good. It'll keep the vents from dumping sedative. But it also means we're on bottle air. We do this fast." Hadley's hand slipped into her pocket and came out with a key card, a thin coil of wire, and a square device the size of a matchbox. She pressed the matchbox into Nora's palm. "Door pinger." Finds the long pause in the lock cycle and widens it. 30 seconds. One use. "You could leave," Nora said, the thought landing heavy and obvious between them. "You have a badge." Hadley's eyes softened and then closed, as if to keep something from breaking. "He took my sister," she said. She didn't hum right. "I'm not leaving while the echoes are still here." A footfall echoed faintly. Not this corridor, one parallel. Hadley gestured and moved, silent as someone who lived by the rhythm of other people's boots. They cut down a service spine, past a door labeled AUDIO, core authorization required. Hadley stopped there and swiped her card. Red. She ran the coil of wire through the seam, listening with her head bent. Inside, machines breathed. You could hear it even through the door, a layered murmuring, as if the building itself was whispering. Hadley nodded at the pinger. Now. Nora pressed the device to the panel and thumbed the switch. A thin, almost imperceptible tone chimed, threading itself into the door's electronics. The indicator blinked, red to amber, then green. The lock let go. They slipped into a room the size of a chapel. Towers of black racks rose on either side, lights winking like constellations. In the center stood a ring of speakers suspended from the ceiling, each angled toward a steel chair with a head frame and a throat mic. The floor around it was worn in a perfect circle by the slow sands of shoes. Hadley moved to a terminal and began typing. Lines of text scrolled. Subject maps, voice prints, target profiles. She pulled up a waveform, and a name appeared above it. Evelyn Kerr. Pry. Beneath it, others. Evelyn Kerr. Aux 1. Aux 2. Aux 3. Each with fragments of speech. Laughter. A cry. A song that hit a shaky note, then corrected itself with impossible precision. Is this all her? Nora asked. Hadley's jaw tightened. It's them, layered and filtered, until he can pretend it's her. Nora stared at the list. Among the auxiliary tags, she saw slots labeled with initials and numbers. M4, L2, N7. Each played a sliver when Hadley hovered. A breath, a word, a sob ground into a vowel that would fit an old memory like a key. The realization tasted metallic. He cuts us up. He arranges you, Hadley said. So flat it felt like grief had been ironed into a sheet. Like chords. A soft chime sounded over the intercom. Vale's voice poured into the room with theatrical calm. Nora, you're making things harder than they need to be. Every step you take hurts someone you fancy. Hadley muted the speakers with a slap. He's routing through local, she said. Ignore it. Nora moved to the ring of speakers. Up close, she saw the delicate mesh that made their faces. Each mesh was pocked with microscopic residue, skin and dust baked into a patina by hours of sound. She imagined the people who had sat there, strapped down while the voices of strangers filled their mouths. How do we stop it? She asked. Kill the core. Hadley pointed to a rack taller than both of them. That's where he keeps the master map. If we wipe it, he can't tune you. He can't tune anyone. And the others? Nora asked. Maya. The women in the pods. Hadley's eyes flicked to a camera bubble in the corner. He's watching. We take down the core, the lock cycle to fail safe. Doors open on the next heartbeat. We have to time it with the fire system, or he'll slam them back. How? Nora asked at the same time, a faint tap-tap, ghosted through the wall. Not a system sound. A person. Hadley stilled. The taps came again. 2. Pause. 1. 3. A code not hers. Nora's chest pinched. Maya? She whispered to the wall. A thread of voice seeped through a seam in the paneling. Not just me, it said. He put us in the choir. Nora pressed her palm to the wall. In the space beyond, tucked between insulation and steel, a narrow service cavity ran parallel to the room. Maya's whisper trembled along it the way sound trembles on wire. Find the manifold, she said, where they drown us in quiet. Break it and the hallway sings. Hadley's eyes landed on a pipe cluster by the ceiling. Labels in tiny print. Halon, Oxyflow, white noise feed. She didn't hesitate. She climbed the maintenance ladder, reached the panel, and wrenched at a valve until it shrieked. A spray hissed from a ruptured coupling, and a thin mist filled the room, cold and biting. The hum changed pitch, as if the building flinched. "On my mark," Hadley called, dropping to the floor. When the heartbeat pauses, the intercom clicked back in, overpowered, Vale's voice riding it hard. "Don't touch that," he said, the calm stripped and a raw edge showing. "You'll suffocate them." Hadley glanced at the gauges. He's bluffing. The halon's isolated. She grabbed Nora's wrist and dragged her to the core rack. "You pull the drives on green." "Which ones?" "All of them." The heartbeat thumped through the bones of the room. Da-dum, da-dum, the pause. "Now," Hadley said. Nora tore at the latches. Cartridges the size of books slid into her hands, warm and whining. She dropped them to the floor. Hadley yanked at cables, ripping one loose with a snap that brightened the lights for a stuttering second and then dimmed them to a red hush. Alarms faltered. The choir of server fans dropped a note. Somewhere deep in the building, a door thudded open. Then another. The heartbeat stretched its pause into a long, unsteady silence, and the escape latches began to chatter. Clack, 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 like teeth. Nora laughed, a raw, unbelieving sound that came out more like a cough. "Did we?" The ceiling blew apart above the doorway in a confetti of acoustic tile. A shock baton stabbed down blue-white and kissed the floor where Hadley's ankle had been a half-second earlier. She rolled, fluid and furious, and kicked the baton out of the guard's hand as he dropped through the hole. He crashed to his knees. Hadley drove her shoulder into his ribs. The baton skittered to Nora, rattled and steadied. She had never held a weapon. It turned out you just close your hand and swing when you have to. The baton cracked against the guard's forearm. He howled and grabbed for her, fingers hooking her gown. She jammed the tip into his thigh. Blue fire arced. He convulsed, eyes glassing, and toppled against the rack. The core coughed sparks. Hadley stomped the baton off and pulled Nora toward the door. The corridor outside was full of sound, the right kind of sound. Voices, human and scared and angry. A woman shouted a name over and over. Another sobbed. Someone laughed in a way that said not joy, but relief. Doors up and down the hall hung ajar. White gowns moved like startled birds. "Go!" Hadley yelled at a cluster of them. "Down the blue line. Emergency stairwell." Faces turned, hesitated, and then flowed where she pointed. The choir was unstacking itself, resolving back into people. "Nora!" Vale's voice boomed. This time not from the intercom, but from the far end of the hall itself. He stepped through the smoke with his coat open and his hands empty, as if that made him gentler. Behind him, 2 guards fanned out. "You don't understand what you're doing." "She understands perfectly," Hadley shot back. "You tuned the lock to mercy and called it science." He studied Hadley with something like pity. "You'll martyr yourself to chaos and call it ethics." His gaze slid to Nora and sweetened. "Evelyn, come back. The quiet hurts, I know. Let me take it." Nora lifted the baton, breath choppy. "My name isn't Evelyn." He smiled like a father indulging a child. "Of course it is." "Say it," Hadley murmured beside her, not looking at Nora but placing the words into her mouth like a tool. "Say your name." Nora met his eyes. "Nora Halpern." He flinched. It was tiny, just a ripple through the calm, but she saw it. She stepped forward. You made a ghost out of your wife and stuffed the rest of us into her throat. That's not love. That's erasure." He lifted his hand, palm out. "If you leave now, the noise will follow you. It always does. You'll hear voices in the shower, in your car, when you try to sleep. You'll wake up and not know which mouth your words came from. I can save you from that. I can make you a single note again. Let me choose my gree. Noise," she said. Behind veil, a figure slipped from a service door, thin, dark hair matted to a gaunt face. Maya. She moved like a shadow poured down a wall, barefoot and quick. She picked up a dropped key card and lifted it in a little salute that was all defiance and teeth, then vanished into the stairwell. Vale didn't see her. The guards did. One peeled away. The hallway teetered on the lip of chaos. Hadley leaned in so close her breath warmed Nora's ear. "On the next heartbeat," she whispered, "run left. There's a fire door that leads to the ambulance bay. It will slam after 10 seconds. If you make it, you make it." "What about you?" Nora asked. Hadley's eyes never left Vale. "I owe a ghost my voice. Go." The heartbeat swelled. Da, pause. Nora turned and ran, the baton clattering against tile, the file jamming her ribs, the corridor whipping by in a stutter of red light and open doors. Behind her, bodies collided, voices rose, a guard shouted. Hadley surged, and Vale said her name like he was trying to bend it back into a shape he recognized. She saw the fire door ahead, painted the lifeless orange of emergency plans. For one wild second, she thought it would be locked another system that needed a song to open, but the pinger had done its work. The bars released. The door coughed cool night air into her face, clean and startling. She shoved through and stumbled onto concrete rough with grit. The air tasted like rain and oil and distant city. She spun to pull the door for Hadley, and a hand closed on her shoulder from behind. Not hard, not violent. Surgical. "Evelyn," Dr. Vale said softly, inches from her ear. "Listen." The word listen brushed the back of her neck like a command built into muscle memory. Nora twisted free, stumbling forward on the asphalt. The emergency lights from the bay door painted everything in sick orange. Beyond the fence, the world was real. Trees bent under wind, rain, starting to fall in thin needles. Vale stepped into the open, white coat flaring. "You feel it, don't you? The world hums wrong without her voice. That ache in your teeth, in your skull, Evelyn's pitch. You're built to complete it." Nora backed toward the fence. "You built me to replace her. I restored you." His tone softened, coaxing. "Every fragment, every harmonic, drawn from the noise you left when you died. I gave you structure again." "I'm not her," she said, clutching the baton like an anchor. He walked slowly, hands visible, voice low. "Identity is resonance, Nora. When two notes vibrate at the same frequency, they become indistinguishable. That's love. That's memory. That's what people call self. You already sound like her. You even dream her dreams." Rain slicked his hair against his forehead. He looked less like a doctor now, more like the wrecked man from the photo she had seen, the widower who'd lost everything. "What happened? To Evelyn?" Nora asked. He stopped a few paces away. She was driving home from the coast. The accident tore her apart before she could even scream. The silence after... He pressed a hand to his temple. "You can't imagine that kind of quiet. I needed the song back. You needed control," Nora said. He smiled faintly. "Same thing." Lightning blinked behind him, turning the fence into a grid of white fire. Inside the building, alarms still howled. Voices carried through the open bay guards, shouting, patients crying, the hum of machinery winding down. For the first time, the facility sounded human. Nora inched sideways, eyes on the padlocked gate. "Let them go, Vale, it's over." He tilted his head. "Over? You think smashing a few drives ends the song? I have backups, Nora. You can destroy the instruments, but the melody stays." He raised a small black remote from his pocket. "The band on your wrist, did you really think removing the capsule stopped it? It's keyed to your heartbeat. I only have to press this once." She looked down. The light on the band was dark, but she could feel a subtle vibration deep under her skin, a pulse that wasn't hers. "What does it do?" "Calls you home," he said. "It tells every cell which frequency to follow." Nora took a step forward, rain dripping from her chin. "Then you'll have to catch me to use it." She hurled the baton. It struck his shoulder, not enough to drop him, but enough to make him flinch. She ran for the fence, vaulted onto the first rung. Electricity bit her palms, low-voltage security wire. She forced herself upward, ignoring the burn. Vale shouted her name, but thunder swallowed the sound. At the top, she swung her leg over, dropped hard onto the other side, and rolled into wet grass. The air smelled of earth and ozone, real air, not filtered. She started running, shoes slapping mud, breath cutting through rain. Behind her, Vale shouted again. A flare of blue. Light filled the sky. Something shorted inside the facility. Then, silence. She didn't stop until the ground leveled into a service road. Headlights bloomed in the distance, an ambulance, lights flashing, siren off. She waved both arms. The vehicle slowed, tires hissing. A paramedic climbed out, a young man with tired eyes. "Hey, you all right? You're bleeding." "Cedar Ridge facility," she gasped. "He's killing people, experiments," he frowned. "Cedar Ridge? That's ma'am. That place was shut down 2 years ago. Fire in the research wing. Total loss." She stared at him. "No, it's right there." She pointed back toward the trees. Only darkness. The hillside where the building should have glowed was nothing but shadow. No alarms, no lights, just rain. The paramedic moved closer, concern etching his face. "You've been through something bad. Come sit in the rig, we'll take you to county." Nora shook her head, water streaming down her face. "I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were, but you're in shock." He reached for her arm. Instinct made her pull back, and when his hand brushed the wristband, the hidden capsule pulsed once, bright enough to flash through the skin. The paramedic jerked his hand away. "What is that?" "Take it off," she said. "Please." He tried, but the band's surface was smooth, seamless. "We'll cut it at the hospital." Another set of headlights appeared from the opposite direction, a dark SUV, unmarked. It slowed beside the ambulance, engine idling. The window rolled down. Vale sat behind the glass, face washed ghost white by dashboard light. "Thank you for finding her," he said to the paramedic, voice calm again, professional. "She's a patient escaped during the evacuation." The medic hesitated. "Who the hell are you?" "Dr. Vale. I run the trauma unit." He held up an ID badge, laminated, official looking even through the rain. "She's delusion. Thinks she's someone else." "That's a lie," Nora shouted, but the medic's uncertainty flickered. Two conflicting uniforms, one soaked woman in a hospital gown. It was every crazy night shift story he'd ever heard. Vale opened the SUV door and stepped out, umbrella unfolding with a click. "It's all right," he said. "I'll take her back myself." The medic shifted between them. She said you were hurting people. She says a lot of things. Vale's tone was pity wrapped in silk. That's what the syndrome does. You know how trauma patients can fixate. Nora backed away. He's not a doctor. He's... The wristband buzzed, a deep tremor that ran up her arm into her jaw. She screamed as her vision bent sideways, colors warping into sound. Vale pressed a button on the remote. Her own voice filled the air, projected from nowhere. I'm ready to come home. The medic froze. How? Vale kept his eyes on her. You hear it, too, don't you? The harmony. That's the real her, waking up. Nora clutched her head, forcing the words out. Don't listen to him. But the voice multiplied, circling her like ghosts. Each repetition closer, louder, clearer, until